Today, I'm going to talk to you about toxic shame that started with my journey through the desert and the lessons that I've learned from not crossing the finish line. Hello friends, I'm Dr. Rue, a psychologist with over 15 years experience, and I'm here to unpack the human mind. My channel shows you easy ways to handle through tough time and grow stronger. This is me. This picture took place in the heart of the desert. I lined up at the start of Javelina 100, a race renowned not only for its brutal distance, but also for the sheer determination it demands from every runner. I was fueled by months of training and the support of my amazing crew and pacer, who had traveled far to pace and crew me. I was ready, or so I thought. As the miles unfolded, so did the challenge. The desert, with its unforgiving heat and treacherous trails, tested every fiber of my being. My friend, ever supportive, cheered, ran alongside me, and tended to my weary body and spirit at every checkpoint. His belief in me was the wind beneath my wings. But as the sun set and the temperature started to plummet, so did my spirit and my ability to fuel my body. As I reached mile 75, something within me just completely snapped, and my body was a combination of pain, and I was not able to regulate my body temperature. It wasn't just the physical agony that brought me to a halt, it was the crushing weight of my own expectations. I faced with the decision to push through unimaginable pain or to stop, and I decided to stop. The moment I stopped, two things happened. The first, I felt a sense of relief, but also, and more intensely, a tidal wave of shame that just crushed over me. I felt as though I had let down not only myself, but my friend who invested time, energy, and faith in me. He had flown out, leaving behind his commitments to stand by me. And in my eyes, I failed him spectacularly. The journey back from the race to our little Airbnb was silent. I battled with my own thoughts, a chatter of what ifs and if onlys. Sitting with my decision in the days that followed, I wrestled with a feeling of inadequacy. The shame was a constant companion, whispering reminders of my perceived failure. It took time, reflection, to understand that the true failure would have been not to try at all. This experience, as harrowing as it was, taught me that shame is often a mirror reflecting our hardest judgments back at us. My friend didn't see a failure. He saw someone who dared to dream, to attempt, to push beyond limits, and to gather memories that would last a lifetime. And yes, I'm still haunted by anniversary picture of my not so glorified moments of that race. But the real journey wasn't the 100 miles of desert. It was learning to forgive myself, to accept my vulnerability, and to understand that sometimes the bravest thing that we can do is face our own imperfections and keep moving forward. So today, I want to talk to you about toxic shame and discuss two strategies that would help you process shame better and eventually open the door to a more happy existence. But before we go into that, I invite you to subscribe to my channel so that you will not miss out on any additional videos with valuable information. There are 12 types of shame, but here are the main 3 important things that you need to know about shame according to Brené Brown. We all have it, we're all afraid to discuss it, and the less we talk about it, the more it controls us. Shame is like when you feel that there is something really wrong with you, not just something you did. It's a heavy feeling that makes you feel bad about who you are. There's this kind of shame that is okay, which remind us that we're not perfect and that's all right. But there is also a bad kind of shame that makes you feel worthless and like you don't belong anywhere. Shame can come from 2 main places. First, if bad things happen to us when we're little, like if someone is mean or hurts us, we might start to think that it's because we are bad. The second place is from feeling left out or rejected by others. Like not being included by friends or family. This can hurt a lot because being part of a group is important to us. It's part of our mechanism. Shame is different from guilt. Guilt is when you feel bad about something that you did. But shame is when you feel bad about who you are. Guilt can help us change and do better, but shame often makes us feel stuck and hopeless. It's like a shadow that follows us around, whispering that we're not just wrong in what we do, but wrong in who we are. It's not about feeling guilty for a mistake. It's about feeling like a mistake. Guilt might nudge us to fix things, but shame, it often just freezes us, making us feel stuck and worthless. A lot of us don't even realize how much shame we're carrying. It's sneaky like that, showing up in how hard we try to avoid it. Take someone who always wants everything to be perfect, for example. They might be scared that making even small mistakes would show everyone they're not as great as they seem. It's not just about wanting to do well, it's about fearing that any slip up could prove they're not fundamentally good enough. This fear can make us shy away from trying new things and take any chances. Because what if we fail and everyone would see our flaws? Or sometimes we might try to even make others feel small, thinking it will somehow make us feel better about our own insecurities. Shame can really mess with us, leading to choices that keep us from living fully, beating ourselves up, or even hurting others. Shame has layers and it's a tricky thing. A simple way to think about it, it's like having two sides of the same coin. On one side, there is what you might call healthy shame, and it's the kind that reminds us we're not superhumans. We all got our limits and flaws, and that's perfectly okay. It's this kind of shame that nudges us to accept we're human, with our own sets of mix-up and messes up. And then there is this other side of the coin, toxic shame. This is the heavy, dark kind of shame that makes you feel like you're not good enough, like there is something fundamentally wrong with you. It's not about something you did, it's about who you are at the core, or at least that's what it makes you believe. So while guilt might pop up when we mess up and hurt someone or break our own moral rules, shame actually dives deeper, attacking our every identity. Guilt says, I did something bad, and it can push us to make things right. But shame, on the other hand, says, I am bad, and it can trap us in a cycle of feeling hopeless and stuck. I know I mentioned Brené Brown, a well-known researcher on this topic. She says that shame is really about fearing we're not worthy of connection of love. It's the pain of thinking our flaws make us unlovable. Let's bring it back to when I ran Javelina 100. Stopping at mile 75 wasn't just a moment of physical or mental exhaustion. It was a moment that brought all these feelings of shame to the surface. It wasn't about the race or not crossing the finish line. It felt like I was a failure. This wasn't just about feeling guilty for not living up to my own expectations or like feeling like I let my friends down. It felt like a statement about my worth as a person. But here's where the idea of healthy shame comes into play. It took me a while, but I started to see that moment not as a mark of a failure, but as part of being human. It was a reminder that it was okay to have limits, to not always meet the goals that we set for ourselves. This shifted perspective from seeing myself as a failure to seeing the situation as a learning experience helped me move past the immobilizing grip of toxic shame. Understanding shame in this way, distinguishing between the natural human feeling of not being perfect and the harmful belief that we're unworthy of love, can be a powerful tool. It's about learning to forgive ourselves for being human, for not always making it to the finish line, and recognizing that our worth isn't measured by our success or failures. It's measured by our courage to show up, to try and be true to ourselves even when it's hard. Now that we have a broad understanding of shame and the difference between healthy and toxic shame, let's talk about practical tool you can use that will help you develop shame resilience and in turn lead to a more happy, healthy lifestyle. If you want to learn more about shame, let me know in the comments below and I will be happy to offer additional information about it. Developing shame resilience, as Brené Brown points out, shame resilience is not all or nothing, present or absent, but a continuum between shame, fear, blame, and disconnection, and empathy, courage, compassion, and connection. So the first thing that we want to do is to recognize shame and understand its triggers. Understanding how your body physically responds to shame gives you a chance to manage it better. Here's some questions you can ask yourself that will help you identify your physical reactions to shame. Where do you physically feel shame? Maybe your stomach knots up, or you feel a heavy weight in your chest. Some people describe it as a hot flush creeping up their neck and face, making them feel exposed. Another question you can ask is, how does it feel? These sensations can vary. That knot in your stomach might feel like a swarm of anxious butterflies. making you nauseous. Tense shoulders might feel like you're carrying a heavy backpack, symbolizing the weight of shame. Or your face getting hot could feel like you are too visible, wanting to hide away. How do you know when you're ashamed? That will be another question that you can ask. You might notice that you're quick to avoid eye contact, or maybe you find yourself withdrawing from others, wanting to disappear. Your heartbeat might speed up, or you could suddenly feel very small and vulnerable. What would shame taste like? Would be another question to ask. Imagine shame having a taste. Perhaps it's bitter, like biting into a lemon, leaving a sour, unpleasant flavor in your mouth. It's a taste that makes you want to turn away, to reject the feeling. What would shame smell like? If shame had a smell, it might be like something burnt, unpleasant, and lingering. A reminder of a mistake you can't seem to get rid of, filling the room to a point where it's really hard to ignore. What would shame sound like? Shame could sound like an echo of critical voices. Maybe your own voice, maybe it's someone else's whispering harsh judgment and doubt, making it hard to think about anything else. By asking yourself these questions and recognizing your physical reaction, you start to see shame not as an overwhelming force, but as a series of sensation and responses you can identify and manage. For instance, if you're about to give a presentation and suddenly feel that familiar knot in your stomach, recognize it as a sign of shame about potentially making a mistake in front of others. Acknowledging this, you can take deep breaths, remind yourself of your presentation, and focus on calming that sensation before it escalates. Understanding your body signals gives you a chance to address shame head on. Instead of being swept away by this, you can say, this is just shame making me feel this way. I can handle this. This awareness doesn't make shame disappear, but it can prevent it from controlling your actions and your emotions, helping you regain your confidence and composure. Another thing that you can practice is called practical critical awareness. Practicing practical awareness means taking a closer look at the things we hear and see around us that might make us feel ashamed, and then asking ourselves if those messages are really true and fair. We can do so by using the SPARK approach. You want to spot the message, pay attention to what's making you feel bad, probe with questions, ask if the message is true and realistic, assess reality, compare the expectations with the real world, relate and share, talk to someone about how you're feeling, and finally know what's best for you and decide what makes sense for you and what doesn't. Spark is all about igniting your ability to handle shame by critically examining the message and the expectations that fuel it. Let's use a simple example. Imagine you feel ashamed because you didn't get a perfect score on tests, and you think you need to be perfect to be smart. So practicing practical awareness would look like spotting the message. You notice you're feeling bad because you believe you need a perfect score to be considered smart. You want to probe with questions. You start asking, is it true that only perfect score makes me smart? Can anyone be perfect all the time? Does one test define my intelligence? Then you want to assess reality. You think about the reality of the situation, remembering that everyone has strengths and weaknesses. You realize that many successful people didn't always get perfect scores. This helps you see that intelligence can't be measured by a single test result. You then want to relate and share. Talk to your friends about how you're feeling. Talk to somebody that you can trust. They share their own experiences of not always getting perfect score and how they learn from those mistakes. This conversation can make you feel less alone and remind you that struggling and learning is just a normal part of a growth. Then you want to know what's best for you. After going through the first 4 steps, you conclude that striving for perfection in everything is unrealistic. You decide that it's okay to aim for excellence and learn from feedback rather than beating yourself up for not being perfect. This approach is healthier and more realistic for your well-being and growth. So by applying the spark to this situation, you transform the shame of not getting a perfect score into a learning opportunity, recognizing that intelligence and growth are about more than just grades. Shame is a deep-seated feeling that we're fundamentally flawed. It can be paralyzing. It's not about what we've done, but about who we believe we are. This harmful perception can stem from childhood experiences or feeling of rejection. But recognizing the difference between constructive and toxic shame is crucial. While healthy shame reminds us that we are just humans with limits, toxic shame drowns us in feelings of worthlessness. We all face it. Fear talking about it and let it control us if left unaddressed. So by recognizing our physical responses to shame and by practicing critical awareness with methods like Spark, we can build resilience. This journey isn't just about personal growth, it's about a pathway to fostering a deeper sense of empathy and open the door for a happy life. Thank you for your attention. I hope this discussion has been enlightening and empowering. I would love to hear any questions you might have, or if you're comfortable sharing about your experience, please drop a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. I'd love to be part of your journey. And until next time, I wish you love and light.